Hey, been a while, hasn't it? Yep. Got a haircut. Ah, look at that. Oh my god. Yeah, didn't do anything with it, so. Lifestyle. Day to blood. Alright, so King Kong was a great first year gaming convention, totally focused on the playing of games and run by folks who were genuinely interested to make sure everyone had a great time doing what they were there for, which was games. Uh, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing how they go. It was really cool. It was down in Warner Robins, south of Macon, in Georgia. And I walked away with a bunch of new friends and new fans of Shaintar. So, and that includes looks like a new Justice Select campaign joining the Grand Panoply. So, exciting stuff. Very successful for us then in that regard. Uh, let's see. Next up, and the last con of the year for us, for Evil Beagle that is MACE, which is in Charlotte, North Carolina. Link below. And among other things, I'm looking forward to running and playing with Rick, who I met at KingCon, and he's become a new Shaintar fan. He's a fantastic player, totally gets it. So, really good guy. I'm looking forward to that. See you there, Rick, if you're watching. Let's see. Other news. Shaintar Legends Unleashed is now in full development at Savage Mojo Studios, and I began work in earnest on Guidebook I, Magic and Cosmology. So if there's anything you want to see in that book that clarifies or adds new stuff to Magic, anything that you feel like was not quite as clear or should be better or whatever for Magic stuff, get on the Shaintar.com forums and let me know. I'm very big on listening to the people, but it's much easier if you put it all in one place for me. I've also decided that the big thank you rewards that we promised coming out of the Shaintar Kickstarter, where you could name a character, the character would be statted, the character would be written, have a little bit of microfiction. Corinne was going to do a special miniature for your character kit, bashed and painted. All of that is going to go in a single standalone book called, tentatively, Dramatis Heroica, Heroes of the Drama, if you will. That doesn't mean that they won't necessarily appear in other products as well, but I just want to make sure, in one fell swoop, I want to make sure I deliver. So one standalone book that we'll put out there, which will be a lot of fun. We'll use the photos of the miniatures that Corinne does as the illustrations for the characters. Lee Blue, my dude for graphic design, layout, stuff like that, who also is a great game designer himself. He'll be doing the interior layout design. We're going to have a custom cover done by Suze, featuring probably the top two or three contributors' characters. And our own fantastic, wonderful Al Bear is going to be editing and project managing this thing. So we're getting that underway. If you were a Shaintar backer and you did not submit information on the link and you still want to be included in this thing, find that link and get on it, or email me and I'll send it to you again. It's only for backers. We have quite a few, but a lot of you very kindly said, no, I want you to focus on something else, which will, of course, reduce the work done in that book. But if you want to be included, I said everyone could. So, but we're getting ready to get started on that pretty soon. So it's going to be too late soon if you don't do it. Let's see. I am also looking at getting out the Shaintar-specific adventure cards. Adventure cards that you can mix and match in with your standalone Savage Worlds adventure deck, and the document will include what cards you should and should not include necessarily if you want to do a solid Shaintar approved deck. So on and so forth. I'll be using the same backings, thanks to Shannon though, so they'll be easily integrated. So we're going to be working on that pretty soon. Speaking of adventure cards, a lot of people really want me to cover in the GM tips and tricks part, player-induced narrative control. Now, this is something that any GM can find a way to include in their games, whether it's Savage Worlds or otherwise. I'm going to discuss the specific mechanics of how I approach it, but anyone could do this, finding a way to do it. Big thing in indie gaming right now is the narrative control that players can exert now. There's different levels of it, depending on what style of Fate you're playing. The players become co-collaborators. It's almost like everyone's taking a part in the GMing of the process. That's a little frou-frou and wavy for some who come from a little bit older school. And there's also there's some philosophical things going on there. A lot of players appreciate being an actor in an environment, not necessarily a creator of the environment. They want to take the persona and explore the environment as presented by the person that they're trusting to give them a good experience, but they don't want to necessarily have to have a heavy emphasis on everything that happens in that environment. That's why they're playing instead of being a GM. They do, I have discovered, enjoy being able to declare a moment in time in which they are acting specifically and heroically, and there's that one scene in the movie, if you will, that's theirs. So I've become very fond of a sort of a one-shot concept. Since I use the adventure cards, what I do in this case is, instead of using what's specifically on the adventure card as written, when you turn in the adventure card, you can instead turn the card in with a Benny, and at that point induce narrative control. Now, it can flow right off of the text of the card, and in a lot of cases that's really the best way to go, is just take what's going on with the card and then go a little extra nuts with it. But sometimes it'll just it doesn't really matter what the card is. I'm turning it in, and I'm taking this moment. What the rules for this are with me are that it has to flow naturally from the narrative. It can't just be some outlandish Deus Ex Machina that has nothing to do with what's going on. But as long as you play the scene off of the setting, and remember, in Shaintar's case, for example, it's a very high fantasy setting, lots of magic, lots of cosmological influence. The ascended, the greater beings, are very much involved in what's going on. Even though they can't directly step in and do things, they can empower heroes in moments of stress and need to do bigger and better things. So, they can help them overcome challenges that otherwise would be nearly impossible. Or they can just, there's that one moment where they just get that spur of adrenaline and they do this almost impossible wuxia style act, or they summon down magic that would be far above and beyond them, but in that one moment they connect cosmologically to the greater universe and get that big thing done. Now, the GM should feel free to play off of what they're doing, so that there's some sacrifice too, or that there's a price to pay for great power, kind of thing. Very often I will use fatigue, like if somebody is like, all right, I need to bring down this dispel, but I need to dispel like these 3 things at once, or we're all going to die. So it's like a uber dispel, or I need to use a power that I don't normally have, and it's way above me, but this is that kind of thing. Or I want to. They basically want to invoke the effects of a legendary edge, and they're only like a seasoned character, like legendary sweep, where they basically do a large burst template and attack everybody. It's just like, we're all going to die if we don't take out these rats. And this happened, by the way, at King Con. Guy spent the Benny, but I had him take a fatigue level when he was done, to reflect that he really burned himself out on doing that. But it was that great scene that he got. Sometimes I'll say, all right, use a spell you don't normally get, but your next level up is called for, right? Spoken for. You now have bought that power. You pre-bought it, essentially. So you kind of jumped ahead, and now you have lower trait. Did this to Corinne last night, as a matter of fact. But, you could be cool about it. I let her have both raised trait, boost trait and lower trait for doing that. So a little extra, because she used it really well. In a really cool and dramatic way. And she invoked whole, family history stuff, where her brother had created the holy symbol that protected her from the lower trait attack that was just absolutely going to devastate her and set her up to die. But she's a priestess, and Arcanon blessed her and kind of gave her a little extra blessing too. So a little something to help the team as well as for herself. So those kinds of things. An incident, our own Howard Brandon, the Ravens flock on Justice Life, wrote a report on the game, and basically he did a really nice job of writing up this piece where that reflects what happened when he spent an adventure card with a Benny. Let's see. Though I was eager to set out immediately, both Longtail and Master Gil felt the need for further negotiations, because they're the romantic thing between one of the PCs and an NPC. While they retired to a shared room, Brother Sephron and I retired to a local shrine for prayer and meditation. Howard was playing a paladin, and one of the other players was playing a priest. oddly, we both suffered from night terrors involving wailing voices and storms. This was a sort of precursor thing that they foreshadowed what they're up against, which, by the way, this was a scenario that ties directly into the Godstrike Tempest stuff. And they were facing storm wraiths or wind wraiths. So they were up against these alien creatures and bad mojo. And there was this very small group, and they did not have a lot of magical items. So they were going to have some hard times. Oddly, we also night terrors involving wailing voices and storms, though I admit that Brother Sephron's connection to Arcanon was stronger. Through his bond, we were guided to a local druidic garden pool. Actually, yeah, it was the other player who played Brother Sephron. Caleb is his name. He's actually going to be the GM of the new Justice and Light campaign. Local druidic garden pool after collecting our companions from the tavern after their night of celebration. We stopped at the pool, and Brother Sephron and I both dipped our weapons and shields in the sacred waters. What happened next I cannot explain, but our arms were coated in a glittering crust of a crystal-like coating, which wafted with the perfume of an ocean breeze, a blessing of the Lady Ileana, no doubt. It would appear that our quest to recover the stones was of concern not only to our worldly orders, but to the Ascended themselves. Through my touch, Lady Longtail's weapons were also blessed. What basically happened was they got this, like, mystical salt covering that was going to disrupt the electrical current powers of the wind wraiths, give them a chance to have a better fight against them. So that was a way in which they got some enhancements on their weapons through prayer and good role play, good storytelling, and spending a penny and adventure card. So that's the essence of the whole narrative control thing, to get cool benefits into it. I mean, I've also had players spend it to get a romantic interest with a key NPC in the setting. Craig Henson did that just because he really liked the miniature that she did for the Brinchy sea captain they encountered. But it also has some really cool story stuff going on there. So it's any number of things that you can do with this, and it flows right off of the current trend that's been going on again, where players grab narrative control. But instead of it being a constant many balls in the air juggle back and forth, which I'm not trying to diss Fate, but I'm explaining why that style isn't really my style. And for other GMs who agree, and there's definitely a divide. There's lots of people who think that Fate is an awesome approach to it, and it works for them in the chemistry. But for players who would prefer to spend most of their time in the actor in an environment they don't control role, but occasionally would like that one moment, and the GMs are comfortable giving them that one moment, there you go. That's the way to approach it. All right, so we were a little long, but it's been a long time since I've done one of these. Gonna try to keep it going, but it's kind of catch as catch can. Pretty busy stuff going on. Won't say there won't be more talking about the healthcare stuff, but as always, I will make sure you have a heads up if that's what I'm going to be talking about. But for the meantime, hope you guys are all enjoying your gaming, and peace out.